Saracena will be moderating this panel about lessons from national aviation, economic and workforce development programs, and we're so honored to have this group of panelists with us.
We have the largest panel today, and just because of the time, I wanted to introduce our panelists, starting with Ted Angel. Ted is the Executive Director for the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence. In this role, Ted is responsible for attraction, expansion, and retention of AAM partners, companies, and suppliers throughout Ohio. He convenes key stakeholders across the state, including researchers, industry leaders, military personnel, and government officials, to foster collaborative efforts with the Office of the Governor. Prior to his role as Executive Director, Ted held multiple positions at the Dayton Development Coalition, a network partner for Jobs Ohio. These positions consisted of Director of Projects and Business Development for Aerospace and Defense and Aerospace Affairs Director. Before his tenure of the coalition and the NAAMCE, Ted spent 27 and a half years in the United States Air Force. He served in every major leadership role to include aircrew flight equipment superintendent, squadron superintendent, command manager, and senior enlisted leader. Thank you for your service and your time.
Thank you.
And the next panelist I have is James Grimsley. James Yakoki. He serves as the Executive Director for Advanced Technology Initiatives with the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. James Grimsley also serves as the Regional Innovation Officer for the Texoma Semiconductor Tech Hub at Southern Methodist Southern SMU. Mr. Grimsley was also a former Oklahoma Transportation Commissioner. He also serves on the board of directors of the Commercial Drone Alliance, and as well as a variety of other boards and advisory committees. He's also served on multiple FAA aviation rulemaking committees, including Beyond Visual Line of Sight, ARC, and James also holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in aerospace and mechanical engineering. He has more than 34 years of professional experience in the aviation and defense industries, including corporate executive experience. Thank you for joining us. The third panelist I have is Ernest Huffman. Ernest comes from Texas. And he is originally he's a Syracuse, New York native, and he holds a bachelor's in aeronautical science from Dowling College and a master's in aviation from the Florida Institute of Technology. He's got over 23 years of experience as an aviation consultant. He has worked nationwide, including as an airline technical representative, and contributed to the development of the Chicago O'Hare Airport. And now he serves as the Aviation Planning and Education Program Manager at the North Central Texas Council of Governments. He leads initiatives in aviation education, regional planning, UAS safety, and advanced air mobility integration. And we also have Matt Beatty. He founded the Advanced Aviation Alignment as a guide for state, local, territorial, and tribal stakeholders in navigating the autonomous transportation revolution. He entered the AAM industry with AirMap and later DroneUp, and he focuses on drone mission planning software, UAS traffic management, and data services. His experience includes chairing industry standards committees, consulting on state DOT AAM working groups, and collaborating with community leaders to enable safe, efficient, and responsible integration of drones into local airspace. And I've got Tom Sawyer, and Tom Sawyer is from North Dakota, and he's the driving force behind Grand Sky, the first commercial UAS flight operations center in the country. So he didn't follow traditional aviation path. He doesn't have an aerospace degree, no pilot's license, but he knows how to build things that matter. For the past 14 years, he's been at the forefront of UAS development, turning ideas into operational reality. As founder and developer of Grand Sky, he focuses on blending infrastructure and investment to open doors for innovation, collaboration, and job creation. He's also a loyal Philadelphia Eagles fan. He wanted to get that in. And last but not least is Dr. Steve Ellis, and he is a scholar practitioner, formerly the learning coordinator of the AFWERX, the Air Force's Agility Prime program. He has over 30 years of experience as a technical training instructor, curriculum developer, training program evaluator, and learning systems innovator. He's also researched how to improve efficiency and effectiveness in occupational skills training, and he's researched the learnability of aircraft control schemes to prove the efficiency and effectiveness of pilot training. All right, it's a lot of people. So I wanted to start with Ted. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Jobs Ohio and your unique approach to economic development?
Sure. Well, first, thank you guys for having us. I debated whether to take the Ohio pin off, but I am proud of the state of Ohio and the work that we're doing and the partnership that we have. When I met Josh Saracena, I've known you for years, but it was about, hey, what are you guys doing that's working, right? And one of the success stories that Ohio is having comes from the fact that the state has been focused on this for probably more than 12 plus years. When it started with the UAS industry, when we tried to become a UAS test site, and we were unsuccessful. That was a blessing for us because then the Agility Prime and the AFWERX program started to take way. And that allowed us to turn our attention to this new eVTOL world and really start to grow how we were going to do that. But the Jobs Ohio piece is the key. In 2011, the governor at the time of the state of Ohio and the Ohio General Council stood up a nonprofit called Jobs Ohio, and they allowed them to lease the liquor license for the state of Ohio for 25 years, right? And so what that allowed them to do is to basically take the benefits that come from the liquor sales within the state of Ohio and provide the ability to move more quickly than the state government can move when it comes to providing incentives on economic development. And we were able to provide grants and low-interest loans to attract companies to Ohio. It was mentioned earlier in one of the other panels that there's 3 major phases to economic development, right? You want to expand and retain the companies you currently have in your state, right? And then you want to go out and attract those that you feel fit the model of where you're going within your state. And so that liquor enterprise lease allows us that flexibility and responsiveness. It also allows us to use the profits to do operations and programs at a more pace of industry versus maybe some of the bureaucracy that you see within standard economic development programs. That contract in 2024, these are numbers you can Google, but it's about a $1.7 billion industry, right? We have to pay back the state of Ohio. Like I said, it's a leased license, right? So the Ohio gets paid back a major portion of that. And then Jobs Ohio, roughly between $200 and $400 million is able to be spent towards mega projects like Joby Aviation or more recently Andrew, who has chosen Ohio for their Arsenal One facility.
Yeah, you've had some great wins as far as getting the large Joby manufacturing plant. You mentioned Anduril. That's another $2 billion plant or something like that. And then you also have Honda and Intel. What is the approach for workforce development for those large job creation? How can you get 2,000 workers trained in such a large manufacturing plant? Can you explain what those plans are?
Sure, and that's a challenge, as most would know, when year after year you mount up a mega project that's committing 4,000 jobs or 3,000 jobs or 2,000 jobs. I think the critical piece for Ohio is that we're a major manufacturing state. It's what we do best. We have great supply chain in ties, being the number one supplier to Boeing and Airbus. This is an industry, aerospace is an industry that we're very close to. We're very close to where the finances come for the Air Force and for the Space Force that run through Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And so that ecosystem lends itself for our colleges, our community colleges, our universities to play right in line with this strategy. And so though we're out economically trying to attract this industry to our state, we are not doing that without constantly being lockstep with our colleges and universities so that they understand, hey, we're going after a company that does X. We need you guys to be right beside us and have the ability to either shift your curriculum, think outside the box on how you would create new curriculum, or even partner and work very closely with those colleges and universities to actually develop the curriculum before they even show up and request that first hiring.
Thank you. You have a new role as the Executive Director of the National Advanced Air Mobility Center of Excellence. Can you tell us about Ohio's strategy toward continuing this success and what has already taken place? Sure.
Sometimes I think I'm crazy. I retired and then I just continue to take new jobs. But it's because I'm passionate about the success of this industry. As a warfighter who wish I would have had some of this technology and some of the conflicts we've been in the last 20 plus years, it's easy for me to get behind seeing it be successful. On top of that, at the Center of Excellence, part of my job, you should have seen two major announcements in Ohio recently, or at least we feel they're major announcements. One was the hiring of the position that I'm currently sitting in. And then recently we just announced that the Ohio Department of Transportation has stood up an AAM division and has hired a director as well. And that's part of the state realizing that, okay, we've had a lot of aggressive movement within the state around advanced air mobility, but now we need to get all the stakeholders back together and get aligned on how we're going to operationally and tactically employ these technologies through Ohio now that we know they're coming and that we will continue to drive them. And so really that's mostly my focus, is to get all the stakeholders together because, as you know, folks have their own agendas and sometimes we talked about getting in those stovepipes. My job and the new AAM director for Ohio is to get everybody together and to continue to speak with one voice. That's something I'm very proud of within the state is that though the governor of Ohio would probably speak way more eloquently than me, his message and my message are never different, right? We speak very aligned from the top of our government with the members within our state all the way down to the lowest levels who are actively working in it every day.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for bringing that learning of Ohio and how you've scaled manufacturing options. I've gone around the country, as those of you know, and I've always been humbled about how Jobs Ohio has been really successful, and it continues to be successful. So they're blessed to have you as the new director there. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And James Grimsley Yakoke for coming here to our Monterey County. I know you and I have been on different panels for many years, and Astro was also in the audience there too. So tell me, you're the only tribal nation here, but you also have a very unique story. So tell this group here who the Choctaw Nation is and what your plans for the Choctaw Nation are.
So before I start, engineers, when we learn a trick, we don't keep them secret. We like to educate people. So there's a trick in communication where you want to imply confidence as you lean forward. And apparently it's 15 degrees. It implies confidence. Any more, it implies that you're in medical distress. So I'm going to try to stay at 15 degrees to show confidence. But thank you very much. we are very much involved in preserving our language. Thank you for using our language, because one of the things that we have suffered from in a lot of the tribal nations is the destruction of our language. And you destroy a language, you destroy a culture a lot of times. And we are very actively trying to restore the language. We have around 300 first language speakers left. That's dwindling. And each of us in the Choctaw Nation are involved in language lessons, so we do what we can. So an important word is halito, which means hello. So on behalf of the Choctaw Nation, halito. So quick background on how I'm involved with the Choctaw Nation. I grew up in the reservation. Both sides of my family go back multiple generations. I'm related to half of Atoka County, which is where a lot of our aviation activities are. Grew up with a deep respect for the Choctaw culture. And I didn't really know it's a Choctaw culture. That was just the way we lived and how we treated people. But it's a remarkable culture. It's an interesting culture that's actually matriarchal. So you look at a lot of cultures around the world that are not. We are a matriarchal culture in how we respect women, how women are held to high esteem as the life givers and stuff. And it's something that growing up in a rural area was really pretty neat. And it's something that hopefully we can carry into the modern world with us. So the Choctaw Nation Reservation, the Choctaw people lived in generational poverty for around 150 years or so. The ancestral homelands were in what is now Mississippi. The ancestral homelands were gradually whittled away, treaty after treaty. The treaty would be broken, more land was taken, until the tribe was forcefully relocated in the 1830s. And it was the final treaty called the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek. The tribe, all the Choctaws at the time were promised that they would be taken care of in perpetuity. You don't have to worry about health care. We're going to give you this amazing land. You'll never have to worry again. And they were forcefully relocated. Several thousand died on what was called the Trail of Tears, made it there. And all the promises didn't quite happen. The health care was substandard, and so for 150 years it was generational poverty. And that's what I grew up in that environment within the reservation when we were young. Fortunately, a lot of things happened in the 70s that allowed tribes to start to get involved in their own self-determination. They were finally allowed to elect their own chief. Prior to 1976, I believe it was, the tribe's chief was appointed by the President of the United States. But they were also allowed to reform their constitution and start to behave as an independent, self-governing body and nation. And the tribe started to take advantage of all these opportunities, and with no debt, because banks would not loan money to tribes 40, 50 or so years ago. A lot of racism involved in that. They built quite a strong foundation economically, little with no debt, all grown organically, so that now that we have a very, very successful, very, very healthy economy within the Choctaw Reservation. After we've solved a lot of the things, the first thing was to worry on the things that we need to take care of, like health care, diet, all of those things. We've taken care of those things mostly, got that stabilized. Now we're working on building a region that thrives. And part of that is to look at what the future looks like. So fast forward, I had moved off. I first generation university graduate, moved off, got my degrees in engineering, paid for my own school because none of us in the reservation had college funds or anything. And I never thought I would go back, because at the time when I left, if you had any chance of leaving, you left, and you never thought about going back. The leadership of the tribe approached me back in 2016, late 2016, and they said they just wanted to talk to me. So I was at the University of Oklahoma at the time, went back to visit, and they bought this large 44,000-acre piece of property. It's 25 miles long. I knew the property. My great-grandmother was actually born on it. Both sides of my family were within about a 15-mile radius of that, so I knew the property very well. And they had a simple proposition. We drove around, had lunch, and talked a little bit, and they said, we want to do something in aviation. And those that know me, my face will not lie about two things. If I eat something really bad, my face will show. I can say it tastes good, but my face will say, no, it's bad, right? But also as an engineer, if it's a bad idea, my face is going to say it. So when they said, we want to do something in aviation, my face kind of contorted. And I said, well, you have no background, you have no infrastructure, you have no capability, you don't have any people here that do that. Why would you want to do that? So I'm giving them the list of why they should not do these things. Save your money. Don't do this. I'm going through all this stuff. They patiently listened to me, and after I got done, they said, is there any way we could hire you to figure that stuff out? And so I said, okay, but no promises. I said, this is tough. This is going to be a hard lift. It took me about 2 months of consulting with them to realize that they were actually onto something, that the sovereignty of the tribe, the unique powers that they had, the resources that they had actually did provide them with something that they could actually get involved and start to help with the regulatory gridlock to move that along. So fast forward, I was consulting at the time. They finally came, they said, we want to make you an offer you can't refuse. Leaving a cushy research administration job, it's actually a pretty good job. They actually did do that, and they made an offer that I really couldn't walk away from. So I went down, and now I'm doing this full time, which is the emerging technology. But we've made some amazing strides within the nation. When we started, we had no aviation programs within the high schools. We had nothing like that. We were selected for the IPP, the only tribal government selected as a lead participant, which turned into Beyond. We started setting aviation records. We started building out that aviation test facility. So now it's a very state-of-the-art facility that we're getting ready to open the first campus, phase 1 campus here in about 6 weeks. But we started doing all this stuff that's generating press. Our program, this emerging aviation program, has generated more international attention for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma and the Choctaw people than anything in the tribe's history. And that is pretty cool. So the tribe considers this a point of great pride. The impacts is that we've seen an uptick in our STEM activities. We now have more than 10 high schools within the reservation have aviation programs. We've seen an uptick of our Choctaw students who are going to college and declaring things like aerospace engineering as their major. We are tracking those things. And so I have one kind of good story to tell about that, and that is a lady called me, and her niece, his mom had died, and she was in high school. And it's kind of a sad story. She was telling me what was going on. She said, my niece is a little bashful. She just thinks what you guys are doing is really, really neat. She said, can she just come out and visit? And I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do one better. If she can make some time available, if she'll come out, we'll make her part of the flight crew, give her some quick training, and she can actually be part of the team. And so she came out. It just so happened we had a university research team, and the young lady was a graduate student leading part of that. And so I pulled her aside. I said, I would really like you to pull this young lady kind of under you. She needs a role model. I want her to see what you're doing, how cool it is, and just let her see a role model. And her aunt called me a week later and said, she won't stop talking about it. That's all she wants. She said she wants to be an aerospace engineer, and that's all she talks about. She's now a junior, and I've written a lot of letters for her, and as part of that, she seems very proud to give me updates. So every few weeks I'll get something. She's got a new internship, or she's got something. Those are the stories that we're excited about, and those are the stories that the chief and I are excited about. The chief and I both agree that if we do nothing financially other than raise the quality of opportunity, then we've done quite a bit. But the fact is, we are raising those economic opportunities. This is providing an economic development benefit to the tribe. We're seeing all sorts of things happening, and that's what excites me. So what we've done is we're transforming a region. We're also looking at this technology as transforming our lives. We have a very poor transportation system, and as a transportation commissioner, I really resonated with what Congressman Gephardt said this morning. We have not raised our motor fuel tax in decades. We are fighting a losing battle with our highways. We cannot continue to expand and think of ground transportation like we always have. We can't afford it. We have to start to figure out how we have this model of a very safe aviation system. How do we exploit this? My opinion is our aviation system, our national airspace system, is very, very, very underutilized. We may be at capacity in certain areas and how we manage, but we are way underutilized. And we have a model of how we can build trust with the public and how we can do it safely. Rural communities can leapfrog. And the example I like to use is growing up in the reservation, my connection to the outside world was a couple of television stations that didn't always work, or a copper telephone line, and that was about it. We were in the United States of America, but still kind of remote and isolated. But then within a generation, within a lifetime, what we saw was countries and locations that did not have a vast copper network jumped ahead with cell networks, with wireless communication. Now you can set anywhere in the world that has cell access with a smartphone, and you have access to the history of the knowledge of mankind. Even the most wealthy, most educated person on the planet, when I was growing up in Southeast Oklahoma as a kid, did not have that. And those are the things that will equalize the quality of life. That transportation is one of our last areas where we have to equalize access and equalize opportunity on our planet, because it's access to X. In the United States, in the 21st century, your zip code determines your health outcomes, your access to opportunity. Just getting your zip code, we can make a lot of predictions about you now. We need to equalize that. And that's why I see this and why the tribe sees this. This is how we're going to move into the future. We're already working on medical delivery. We're working on all sorts of things. We're going to leapfrog and begin to get the benefits that urban communities have always had, but allow people to live that same quality of life in a rural area, to maintain our culture, maintain the things that are important to us within the Choctaw Reservation. So it's very important to us.
Going along with that, and since I have Ernest there, we didn't talk about where Choctaw Nation was located, that you guys are also building the multimodal North Texas corridor. And so just looking more broadly, how do you look at UAM and AM technologies with that, access to the North Texas corridor?
It's kind of, I think we have to think about UAS and AM in some ways in that we're building out a lower altitude economy, essentially is what we're doing. So a lot of the mitigations that we will need to do beyond visual line of sight operations, a lot of these things that we're going to need are not too different than what AAM will benefit from. Maybe not necessary for AAM, but AAM will benefit from. And I see Don Birchoff. I mean, we need more granular, more fidelity in our weather forecasts and our weather modeling and our observations. All of these things will work together to really benefit that low altitude traffic. But also a lot of those investments, we've always thought of aviation and ground transportation separately. We don't plan airports at the same time we plan highways. We've kept them in separate domains. We can no longer do that. We have to think that even on the rural roads, there will be connected vehicles. There will be things. The things that we need, the infrastructure and the capabilities we need for connected vehicles on the ground are not too different than what we're going to need for beyond visual line of sight, and improving that safety of the airspace. And so we really have to start to think holistically. The state of Oklahoma actually helped with a bill about 3 years ago. We decided we would combine it. We're not going to treat autonomous vehicles and advanced aviation separately. They're one umbrella now, and that's the way the state of Oklahoma looks at it. But you're talking about our proximity to Dallas. Dallas-Fort Worth is on the verge of becoming the third largest metro area by 2030. The population of DFW right now, that just those two communities together, is bigger than the population of Oklahoma and Arkansas put together. By 2030, the population of that metro area will be bigger than the population of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas. Yep. So that economic opportunity is impacting us. The corridor is an evolutionary step. We'll see corridors pop up. Eventually, we'll want ubiquity. So corridors are where we have infrastructure now. It's not like it's exclusive. It's where we can fly safely more quickly. But eventually, our goal everywhere in the United States will be ubiquity. But we'll see these corridors of activity first happen. And so we are working with a corridor with Texas. The same thing's happening on the Texas side. And it's going to be an evolutionary step.
Well, let me switch over to Texas now. Ernest, thank you very much for traveling out here to Monterey County. So how is North Texas preparing its workforce for UAS and AM? And on that, what do you see have been the strategies that have been most effective in engaging students and also underrepresented communities in aviation?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I speak from the perspective of the Dallas-Fort Worth region, so I don't speak the perspective of the entire state of Texas, but just our local region. We got 45 cities with populations of 50,000 or more, and it's a 16-county population area that we represent. So in terms of the workforce development initiatives, my organization, before I was there, had the foresight to start what's called our North Texas Aviation Career Outreach Initiative, where we do aviation career outreach throughout the metropolitan area, and we've been doing that previous to my arrival. We have an aviation career website that distributes and shows students, faculty, as well as parents, all the different aviation careers available, salary ranges, skill sets required, schools they can go to, et cetera. And we've been running that out for the last decade or so. We did that because we did a gap analysis on the aviation industry and their workforce in our region and nationally back in 2010. And we found, just like everybody else knows here today, that those aviation careers we have issues filling those careers. There's deficits in all sectors in aviation, ATC, pilots, and on down the line. So with that in mind, they created that particular organization. In comes me. So I came from Chicago, and I had a passion for outreach because it was someone who came at a career day and spoke about the airport consulting profession, and that's where I learned about that, and that led to my career. But previous to that particular meeting, I would have never known about that career profession, and I doubt I would have matriculated to consulting. As a matter of fact, right after that outreach event, I went to a job fair the very next day and got an internship as a consultant, and I never would have spoken to that consulting firm because I just knew I was going to be an airport manager. So because of that, and because of that opportunity that it afforded me, and that I came down and I took the job in North Texas, not only to do the airport planning piece, because I'm still an aviation guy and still want to grow that particular industry, but to get do the outreach component and get into a lot of those communities that don't hear about aviation careers. And because of the mechanism we have via that mechanism, where we do outreach. And as you say, what's been successful? What are those programs that have been successful to build the workforce in our particular region? It's outreach, outreach, outreach. And it's grassrooted because it's not a particularly funded endeavor. We do outreach 7 days a week. On top of my day job, which is the general planning for aviation facilities and infrastructure and deployment in the region, I'll go and do outreach on aviation careers to any organization, Rotary clubs, City of Commerce's, mayors, educators, students, and down the line because, and I didn't mention this, in North Texas, the aviation industry is robust. We have over 900 aviation-related and aviation and aerospace-related corporate entities. We got over 400 aviation related developments in the region. So folks know about aviation in our particular region. The degrees of separation between you and somebody who knows, who works in that profession is pretty close in our particular region. But those proximity and the know-how how to get to those jobs just wasn't there for a lot of the community. So we focus on, I go everywhere and do outreach. And because of advanced air mobility now, and the excitement around this new sector in aviation and the robustness and the folks here and the passion in growing this particular industry and the folks here, it's been gangbusters in terms of the momentum in our region and in the state on the education side, to the point where, and I didn't know this about the state of Texas, and I've lived in multiple states in the nation. They have a robust career pathways initiative where they start kids on determining what they want to do from a career from since 7th grade. You pick at 7th and 8th grade what you want to do from a career, and then they have coursework all the way through your remaining years in primary school and high school, leading you towards those careers with industry participation, high school internships, and then further opportunities in universities. So because that's already in existence in Texas, we just piggyback off of those existing programs. And we've been able to get UAS programs on their career pathways list, so now kids can explore professional drone careers from since eighth grade, and we paired them with industry early, and now we're bringing on that advanced air mobility component. But what's successful is outreach, in particular in being that the industry is in its infancy, outreach, talking to any and everybody, and educating them on the opportunities.
And what have been it sounds like you've had a great program, you have a robust industry, you do public-private partnerships, but what have been your key challenges then? The
key challenges for us is we're not Monterey Bay where you have an OEM, and a few OEMs are already here doing the manufacturing, doing the maintenance, and doing the pilot training. And so we can't take advantage of that. So what we're doing is all an absence of that. We're letting them know of the opportunities in that career when they do come. And we're preparing them for that. But as soon as we get the Jobies of the world to come and play with us on that, to that extent, the sky is the limit. And we have a lot of folks interested in investing once that opportunity is there. Great. But the main hurdle is having that maintenance and manufacturing facilities.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So Matt, you're not a state, but you've done a lot of extensive analysis on states. So I want to just ask you, your research shows that state and local investments are more critical than federal funds in advanced AM initiatives. So how sustainable are these regional public-private investment models, especially regarding workforce development?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so honored to be on stage with those that can give you the real world experience behind what I've been laboring for the better part of the year with DART, to put together a quantifiable analysis of some of these state initiatives on AAM. What I can say, and hopefully we'll be able to showcase through release of that white paper over the coming month, is that the quantifiable data reinforces the information that you're hearing here about the opportunity, not only for workforce development and economic growth, but to impact lives of young people and those that would not have a pathway towards a better living wage and opportunity. So that's the short part of what's to come in that white paper. But I will say this, that there has been the dirty little secret in the room that a lot of people that are very knowledgeable about AAM and the advanced UAS operations environment is, back when they were handing out the designation for the FAA test sites around 2012, everyone thought that would be the boon in terms of federal funding that would follow on, and the opportunity to rake in a lot of federal dollars to help build the infrastructure necessary to deliver on the promise of AAM and the different use cases that come from that. The reality is that less than 10% of the budgets that have been allocated at these state initiatives have been resourced from the federal government. Everything else has come from state, local, territorial, tribal investments that really has taken the risk and seeded the opportunity for the growth, both economically and for the public benefits that come from those AAM modalities. And so when you think about that, these are states and initiatives that have taken a very targeted approach. And the sustainability of that over the long run means that at the top, and Ted said this earlier in his comment, from the top, from the governor, not only a statement around the commitment to investment in AAM, but actually a commitment of funding and a commitment of funding both economic development-wise and also leadership from the Department of Transportation in being able to create a head of AAM or not move beyond just the analysis of the capabilities that it might deliver, but actually investing in a statewide aviation plan that will incorporate the infrastructure necessary, both from a sensor perspective, like what Don's company delivers in weather, or its detect and avoid technology through ground-based radar, but also through the data infrastructure and investments that can benefit all actors in these advanced use cases of AAM. And so what's interesting, and Ernest said that they don't have Joby there, but I'll tell you this, the Dallas-Fort Worth area does have a tremendous amount of commercial viability from what they've been able to attract in that region through their early investment and commitment to AAM. Right now they've got Wing, they've got Drone Up, they've got Mana, they've got Zipline, Opera, all those commercial UAS operations for retail last mile delivery have targeted that market because of a favorable commitment and signal both from the state and from the local municipalities and the region towards AAM. And the North Central Texas Council of Government has taken a very specific leadership role in planning AAM and UAS into their overall transportation plans as an integrated modality. So intermodal transportation has been key to that. And so I think when we think about the sustainability of AAM infrastructure, we have to think about how do we look at building that into California's state budget. How do we replicate some of the success that we've seen and the impact that we've seen in some of these other regions by how do we incorporate this into our intermodal transportation planning? We have committed $28 billion for a high-speed rail system that by 2030 hopefully will lead us from Merced to Bakersfield, right?
In the interest of time, we don't want to talk about the high-speed
Sure.
rail system here, but
I'll just highlight this.
No.
I'll wrap it
Matt,
up by saying
yeah.
that we have an opportunity with that to potentially incorporate intermodally AAM to be a flexible alternative to link other communities to that high-speed rail program.
Okay. Thank you.
And so that's how we can make this sustainable and an investment opportunity here in California.
Right. So Tom, thank you for joining us from North Dakota. In the interest of time, I think I only have 5 minutes left, so the last participant, 15, okay, good. So Tom, tell us about, I don't think the audience knows about Grand Sky. They know a lot about our failure of the high-speed rail system, though.
Sure.
But what is Grand Sky? And tell us, how it's created economic growth in North Dakota.
Sure. Grand Sky is a public-private partnership between the United States Air Force, Grand Forks County, North Dakota, and my company. We have been brought in to be the private developer of the Grand Sky project. It's not huge. We are not doing anything at the scale that Ohio is attempting. And James at Choctaw has some great stuff going on there. We are 217 acres, but we are on an active duty Air Force base, so we have access to their runway, we have access to their tower, so we didn't need to invest in all of that infrastructure that was already existing. We identified early, and so we are celebrating our 10th anniversary this year, so we've been operational for 10 years. It is a for-profit business. If it doesn't make money, it doesn't get invested in. Now, we have been blessed. North Dakota has vast oil resources, second only to Texas, and the state has been investing in growth initiatives around workforce diversification. As the previous governor would say, North Dakotans are not making enough North Dakotans fast enough. And so there are a lot of initiatives around autonomous systems, robotics, and UAS systems. And so we've been a beneficiary of that. The state of North Dakota has invested $33 million to date in infrastructure, so roads, utilities, the things that we need to attract companies. And we've been able to do that over the last 10 years. Right now we run about 269 people call Grand Sky their workplace every day. Our average salary is $117,000 for all those people. Some much more. That number actually came down over the last few years because we hired a lot of aircraft mechanics in the upper $90s, $1,000 a year range, which, by the way, if there's anybody who's an AMP, we're hiring them on the spot right now. You show up with a resume, if there's a job opening or not, we're hiring because we need aircraft mechanics. A speaker earlier mentioned the shortage there is a problem. So we have 269 people. We have 50 job openings right now available that we are working to fill. Grand Forks is in far northeastern North Dakota. We are less than 2 hours from the Canadian border. There's a small community, about 45,000 people in Grand Forks. There is a university. And so our job is to attract companies. So we take the state investment. We invested in infrastructure that companies like Northrop Grumman, like General Atomics, KBR want so they can demonstrate their products, create training capabilities for their products, and do work. So we call it an operations center because we are flying daily flights every day on customer-paid operational missions. There's not a whole lot of research flight happening. It's now sensor calibration. There's a lot of development of capabilities around UAS at Grand Sky.
And you always say there's a difference between creating a workforce and creating jobs. Can you tell the audience and us what you mean by that?
I think there's a big difference with that, and I think that several of the speakers here on the stage and some of the folks that we heard on the panel before, I see incredible opportunities to create workforce, to give people training and opportunities. My job is to create jobs. I specifically have a mandate to get people hired and moving to Grand Forks and living in Grand Forks and working in Grand Forks. So I am looking to avail myself of all those workforce opportunities to find trained people to be able to come and support these companies. Right now, I would say that we have a roughly 50-50 mix of people that we've attracted from out of state and people that have been homegrown in state. We don't have a problem finding college graduates. The University of North Dakota State, University of Minnesota turn out great graduates for a lot of the jobs that we need. We don't have a problem with senior level folks. A lot of folks that served in the Air Force that want to come back to Grand Forks, served at Grand Forks Air Force Base, we find opportunities for that. Where we struggle is in the 7 to 10 years experience, project management, senior engineer, kind of team leader, younger team leader in their career field. But that kind of experience is the real problem that we have. So we are doing a lot of social media investing in outreach to bring those people there. But I think that the difference between workforce and jobs, workforce is getting a broad group of people ready for jobs. I'm looking for jobs. I'm looking for people to actually fill ready-made positions right now. So I need people with those skill sets that the workforce generators create.
Got it. Specifically on workforce development, I'm going to ask you, Dr. Ellis, you did a lot of research on these new AMs from both the pilot and maintenance training. So should we train pilots to follow traditional models and methods, or with these new advanced air mobility vehicles, do you think we should consider other approaches?
So, thanks for the question. I had the opportunity when working for the Air Force to look at advanced air mobility. We know it's going to come to the Air Force. We know we're going to have dual use applications for these things. And how do we prepare that Air Force workforce that's going to have to support these aircraft and fly these aircraft? And the assumption that we were told is these are easier to learn to fly than traditional aircraft. But the numbers that we were given were widely varied in how easy they were. And like Cody cleverly said the other day, we assumed this, but we didn't have the data to back it up. And said, all right, we can do that. We'll do the study and find out what the data is. And we ran 80 people through 2 of the simulators that were available at the time, the Joby Sim and the Beta Sim. And we looked at them, and we looked at the different levels of autonomy and automation that are in these aircraft that are required to make them fly, because you've got distributed electric propulsion, you've got 8 different rotors that are moving at different speeds that are changing every few milliseconds. There's no way that a human's going to hand fly that aircraft. And one of the side benefits of that is with the advanced levels of automation and the new control systems, these things don't fly like traditional aircraft. The traditional aircraft, I see you shaking your head, those control schemes haven't really changed much from the 1940s to today if you're flying a Cessna 172. But you jump in one of these aircraft and it's like, this is all different. And we looked at things like fly by intent. I needed to make a left-hand turn. Well, instead of having 2 controls and rudder pedals, I just move the stick to the left and the airplane takes care of the rest. Gives you a coordinated turn, maintains altitude, airspeed, does everything for you in that perspective. And with that being taken care of by the aircraft and the machine, what does the human have to do? So of the 80 people that we put through these sims, half of them were rated Air Force officer pilots that had at least 500 hours. And we looked at the learning curve. What does it take to transition somebody from a C-17 or an F-15 into a Joby or Beta? And we looked at that learning curve, and they flew the same forbidden route over DC 4 times, and we measured their progress each time, and we could see that learning trajectory. And for most of the pilots, for a large percentage of them, they would hit a ceiling level of performance. In other words, they couldn't get any better. They had shacked the performance level after the 3rd or 4th run. That was pretty good. The amazing thing was the other 40 participants were ab initio, 0 flight hours. We would find whoever was in the military in the San Antonio area who had enough autonomy over their schedule to take the day off and come fly a sim. And typically that was a 34-year-old master sergeant that had that autonomy. And they would jump into this thing and never flown an aircraft before. And we measured their, how they could take off, how they could hover, how they could maneuver, how they could manipulate the air through the airspace, and how they could land. And we measured that learning curve. The interesting thing was the 2 learning curves, they were on the same glide slope. The ab initio students were about 2 hours behind the pilots in stick and rudder skills. Now that's only measuring stick and rudder. It doesn't talk about airmanship or anything like that. But it validated the assumptions that Cody was saying, hey, these things are easy to fly. How easy? This easy. We've got the data. And with the data, we did that so we could influence policymaking, provide data for database decisions for senior leaders. Hey, boss, here's the data that shows what the assumptions are saying. The other thing was to influence policy. And when we're looking at this dual-use technology, the policy wasn't just Air Force policy, but national policy. So we got in touch with the FAA and we said, look, here's what we think the training program needs to look like. And there needs to be a pathway from, not just to conversion training from airline pilot to an air taxi pilot, but also from pedestrian to eVTOL pilot. And what does that look like? And we started using that data to influence things like the SFAR. So when the Air Force got its opportunity, we got our opportunity to comment on the draft SFAR when it came out, which is the supplemental regulation for eVTOLs and advanced air mobility. We had some data to back up our assumptions and our comments. And we said, please change this. And so most of our changes, I think, were accepted in the SFAR. The other thing that we leveraged that for was in international standards. So we're working with SAE to develop the international standard for AAM, including the pilot and maintainer training. And so we saw that was, we developed a new pathway for that, would you put it that way. That hasn't been released yet, but it's going to show different pathways, including conversion training and ab initio training, so pedestrian to pilot. What does that look like in an AAM scenario? And does it need to be time-based training like our current is? We don't think so. If we can get to a competency-based model of performance-based evaluation and training, where as soon as you reach this level of performance, you're good, you can move on to another task. Does it matter if they spend 20 hours in the jet or 80 hours in the jet to get to that level of performance? It's going to be vary from person to person based on experience, aptitude, skills. And we also looked at the aircraft maintainers. And we had an AFWERX fellow that worked with us and went out and touched all the jets, and he looked at his maintenance background and experience and said, all right, here's the things that we don't need to know. We don't need to know how to rivet. We don't need to know sheet metal. We don't need to know hydraulics, because these aircraft don't have them. But we do need to learn advanced composites, how to do maintenance on advanced composites. High voltage electrical systems. 800 volts is not something you see on a traditional aircraft. Data buses. These things have data buses running everywhere. Our aircraft maintainers don't connect LAN cables, but that's what's running on some of these aircraft, or a CAN bus. So these were all things that we need to look at changing how we're looking at that. Is there a different certification for an eVTOL pilot than a traditional pilot? Should there be a different certification for an A&P license than a traditional A&P license?
Right. And
Yes.
then for all these national working models, what do you see like from the national perspective of how can schools conform to provide that type of workforce that's ready for this?
So I was able to ask several of the CEOs and training leaders in this industry through the people that we met along the way, and ask them, what do they want? What do they want to see? And a couple things came out on very clear. If a high school graduate shows up and has worked with carbon fiber, has done something in advanced composites, doesn't have to be much, just understands the idea that you cut the stuff, you stick it together, you autoclave it, and it comes out stronger, and then measure how that works. Hands-on. That would be a huge difference. The other thing they said was CAD. I don't need somebody, I heard this a lot, I don't need somebody who's a CAD engineer, I've got engineers for that. I need a technician that can open a CAD file, make a minor change to a drawing, and then print that on a 3D printer. If I have a student, a graduate, a high school graduate that knows how to do that, then I can train that the rest of the way. So we're looking at that, and the other things we asked for were, what are the soft skills? How do these graduates align to your core values? Well, the core values for all these companies were safety, number one, openness, honesty, accountability, entrepreneurialism. These were things that meant a lot to them. And they would love to have those types of things woven into whatever training program they're in, so that they start looking at that. If they make a mistake, they say, hey, I made a mistake, look at this, we need to do something about this mistake, instead of saying, what mistake?
So basically, you looked at that we need more CTE, more hands-on, more, career technical within the high school level.
And it needs to be integrated into the high school curriculum instead of a separate, you're a CTE person, yeah.
I think for questions from the audience? I know it's us between lunch, so I don't want to get in the way. We don't want to get in the way of people's lunch. So there's a few, okay. Sure, we'll take one. We'll take one that's workforce related. So the last one. In the combination of high school and junior college vocational training plus state level subsidies, the key to winning manufacturing centers, as in Joby in Ohio. Okay, you can take that, Ted. What's the key?
That's a Ted.
Yeah, I think the key is, and I know we focus on college and community colleges and universities often, but I think in Ohio, we are focusing, at the lowest level. So our target audience most of the time is fourth graders and up, exposing them to this new industry. For those that have been out to the Center of Excellence in Springfield, we have a pretty robust playground of an elevated prototype landing pad that Beta Technologies has built. We have Joby's simulator there. We have a Beta simulator there. We have a Pivotal Blackfly simulator there. We have a facility that's geared around techie, other things that if you don't want to fly the airplane, you can learn about the networking systems and the UTM development that needs to happen to do all the things we've been talking about. And so we're able to bring our STEM programs at the lowest levels all the way through high school, constantly to the facility and to the area at no cost to the schools, at no cost to the students. We do all of that because we want that playground to be a place that they're exposed to this industry so that we can get them really, really motivated about being aviators or aviation, or being in aviation in some form of a fashion, whether it's in maintenance or whether it's in the aircraft technician, or it's being a future pilot of an electric airplane that nobody thought would come, right? We're able to show them all of those things live, and they can touch them and they can feel them and they can go home and tell their parents, I did this and this is going to happen. And so I think for us, it is more about attacking the lower levels. And I think you mentioned earlier having some of the educational things in place. We do some stuff in our area as well and within the state where we're now testing students at a very early age to kind of give them an idea of what they could be when they get older, right? And so they take that test every so many years, and it continues to validate that they're on the right path to going after that, right? Well, I want the first time they take that test, right, that they're thinking about aviation and they're focused on aviation, and we're motivating them to go down that path. So I hope that somewhat answered how we're getting after it. But we're not only attacking it at the college and the community college levels, it's a really big focus for our youth to be exposed to this as well.
I think early education, thank you for highlighting that. Anyway, I think we are ready for lunch now, and so hope everybody enjoys your lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.